Your want and need and desire to achieve your goal has to be stronger than everything else that comes against you.
Over the past 3 years, we've interviewed so many different fighters, from UFC fighters, MMA fighters, Muay Thai fighters, boxers, all around the world, professionals, champions, world champions, British champions, you name it, we've interviewed them. Today, we speak to all of them and we find out exactly what it takes to be the ultimate fighter, what it takes to be a great fighter. We learn lessons from their journey to find that out. Today's video was sponsored by mulliganrunners.com, where you can now buy the Rise and Grind t-shirts, and the whole new gym series is linked down below. The support with the clothing brand has made this possible, so thank you so much. I am your host, Jordan Mulligan. Let's jump into it with all these fighters about how to be one of the best.
Seeing your dad speak to you today, and there must have been some moments where he's giving you them lessons, there must be something that sticks out that you remember.
You know, I'd say one that changed my life was I lost my final amateur fight and was driving back from up north, and he said to me, "You got to really look at what you're doing now." He said, and at this time, I just lost. So I'm really in that place where I'm like, I don't want to hear criticism. I don't want to hear anything. I just want to be upset by myself. And he said, look, you got to turn pro now, or you really gonna have to put your foot down if you want to get out of boxing what you want to get out of it. And sometimes, that was the first time in my life where, when he was giving me one of those speeches, I knew he wasn't exaggerating. Like, I was old enough to realize he's right, you know, he's actually right. Like, it is kind of a make or break. It's not a make or, obviously I could go and box, I could have more amateur fights if I wanted to, but to achieve what we want to achieve and to stay on the trajectory of progression that we're used to operating on, he's like, you gotta make your decision now. You gotta really knuckle down here, or you gotta turn pro and continue and do what you said you wanted to do from when you was a child. And when he had that speech with me, even when I was laying in bed when I got home, I thought, he's right. I can't pretend, I can't act like I didn't hear it. I gotta know what I'm doing. And I say, from that conversation to present day, that's when I've really moved forward. And that's where I've really progressed and taken the sport seriously. And yeah.
What does that look like day to day?
Film, watching, you know what it is? It's watching things when you don't want to watch it. I feel like that's the most important thing. Like, sometimes there's always options. There's always something else to do. I believe that. There's always something else to do. But it's choosing to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay and watch this fight. Or I don't want to run today, but I'm going to run, and I'm going to run the best I can run. Or like today, I feel tired. It's not about it, but you got responsibilities. You got responsibilities. We agreed, we're going to come down, we're going to shoot this, we're going to do this. We're coming down, we're going to do it, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And I feel like that's why I'm going to be one of the best, because I do things now when I don't necessarily want to do them. And before, I would only do it when I want to do it. But that's just how you become average. So I said to myself, it's about grinding when you don't want to grind. It's about getting up when you don't want to get up. Traveling up and down the country when you don't necessarily want to travel up and down. And my team do it with me. And that's why I know I got the best team around me. Whether it's my cameraman, whether it's my strength conditioning coach. My strength conditioning coach got up at 4:30 in the morning yesterday and still came all the way to Stoke with me and got back at 11 p.m. just to make sure that he was there for me. And I want to be lazy. I can't. I feel guilty. I feel like you're putting yourself out, and I can't even put myself out for myself. I can't operate that way, and that's why I'm so glad I'm fortunate to have the team I have, because it really makes me realize, like, yeah, I'm in the right place, and everyone's pushing. Everyone wants it as much as I want it, and that keeps me going.
How did you get into the fight game? Like, what was the journey like?
Yeah, so the fight game has just kind of found me, I guess. You know, like I said, I was being kind of young and kind of getting into trouble sometime in places, and being an athlete in sports and everything. So yeah, you know, I always had a sense of never really wanting to work for someone. You know, I wanted to be my own boss. You know, I was really into sports, you know, football, wrestling, track in high school, football in college. I did a little bit of collegiate wrestling as well. And once I was done with that, I just fell upon fighting, you know, mixed martial arts. It was like a sense where I can almost like fight something that I took bad, kind of getting into trouble, and turning it into a positive and a good thing, and make it into a sport and a career. And you know, I found peace in doing that and being athletic.
Do you remember your first experience?
As an MMA fighter or as an actual fighter?
As an MMA fighter,
Yeah. My first experience was in high school, really watching the sport. So you would think 2000, year 2000, I was a freshman in high school. That's when I really fell in love with the sport, you know, watching guys like Frankie Edgar compete and really wanting to be involved. So fast forward a few years, college football didn't really work out. And, you know, I started competing and fighting in Springfield, Missouri, where I went to college. And I think I went in the gym not really knowing what was up, and I kept my socks on, you know, going onto the mat. It looked like a slumber party type thing, you know. That was a funny experience to where, you know, a guy came to me, was like, hey man, you wanna kind of take your socks off? You can't really train with socks on. So got into that, and then my first fight was kind of like a whirlwind. Really nervous, you know, even though I fought plenty of times before, you know, I still didn't know what to expect. And the best came out of me, and I won my fight in first round knockout, and the rest is history.
I was a bit young and probably just a bit cocky and arrogant, and it just never ever used to cross my mind that I was fighting a fully grown man at all. It was like, this is a fight, and I just loved it. I was training in here alongside a lot of good fighters at the time as well, and I was holding my own with them, so there were never any really confidence issues or anything like that. I just used to get in there because I used to love it. I used to walk around school and playground just daydreaming about when my next fight, where I'll be sat in class not paying any attention whatsoever. All I could think about was getting out and going to the gym. And eventually I started on the dinner hour running from my school, which is just down the road, up to the gym, doing some quick pads with Richard and then running back to school. And that was like on my dinner hour and stuff like that. So I was obsessed by the sport, and I was obsessed with fighting. And so it never really crossed my mind that I might get hurt here. And I went my first like 29 pro fights unbeaten, so it never really like crossed my mind that I could get hurt or there could be a possible injury or anything like that. I had tunnel vision of everyone I got in there with. I thought, I'm going to knock them out. I think my first 3 fights, I knocked them all out first round, I think. I was having a fight, it was about 2010, against one of the heaviest punchers there was ever been of all time. His name was Arnold Samrit. We'd fought before, and in the first fight he absolutely destroyed me. But I knew I could beat him, and I thought there was just something not right that night, and I knew I could beat him. So I begged the promoter over here to bring him to England. I said, let me fight him in England in front of everyone, because I don't want everyone thinking that I'm just getting smashed a bit. It was the first time I'd ever been stopped in a fight, and I got him to England. We fought at the MEN Arena, one of the biggest stadiums in England, and all my friends and all my family were there. And I remember the camp for that fight. What I'd usually do were about 8 weeks. But because I was fighting so regular at the time, a lot of my fights might have only been like 8 weeks apart. So I'd have one fight I train 8 weeks for, and then I might only have 4 weeks, have another fight, and then might only have 3 weeks and have another fight. So I'm fighting so regular. But for this fight, I didn't accept any other fights. I just had 12 weeks. And I remember on Christmas, I had a drink on Christmas Day with my family, and I said, right, that's me done till the end of March. I said, I'm not going out, I'm not going anywhere other than the gym. I went to Thailand for the first part of it, and I came back, and then I just lived in this gym for 12 weeks, and I beat him comfortably. And I knew I could do it, and it was just like everything I did for that fight. I did more sparring than anyone else in the gym. I ran a few more miles. We usually run like 5 miles before training. I ran running 7. Sometimes I ran 10, and then still came in here. I had to be a bit smart because I was training so hard that my body was getting really tired. But if that happened, I just took a day off or 2 days off, and I looked after myself, and I did everything right, and I beat him easily. And he was the current stadium champion at the time. He had an 80% KO ratio, which were higher than any other Thai fighter around. and to beat him that easily in front of all my friends and family, I'll never ever forget that as long as I live.
What was it? Do you remember? Let's take it back to boxing. The first time you stepped in and like had a proper fight. Like, do you remember what that was like?
Yeah. So my first fight was in like a little village hall in some country, little village place somewhere, and I think it's Norfolk. And it was back when there was smoking inside, and there was a cloud of smoke above the boxing ring where it all just sort of travels to the lights. And there was Christmas things everywhere. It was like around this sort of time, like November-ish. And I just remember like they called my name and like they said like, "You ready?" and all that. And I just ran across the ring throwing left hands, because I just throw left hand. It was like you know when you're on the PlayStation, you just keep pressing the button. And I literally I got so tired. I was so tired. So the third round, I was exhausted. I literally just covered up and I just survived. But luckily I won the first 2 rounds by spamming left hands. But yeah, I was so fatigued by the third, I didn't know what to do. So I just hung on.
In a similar sort of way, do you remember the first time you stepped into an MMA gym, like for the first time?
Yeah, the first MMA gym was in this building. And yeah, it was a bit, like I'd trained a lot before I come here, but I'd done like bits and bobs of other stuff, like a bit of Muay Thai, a bit of grappling, but never MMA. And I come down here and got choked out by everyone. And it was kind of upsetting, because I went from being pretty good at boxing to pretty crap at grappling. And it was, yeah, it was disheartening. I'd get choked out 10 times, go home and sort of think, what am I doing, you know? So. But yeah, eventually it got better, and now I'm the one doing the choking. So
it's a good perspective to have coming from yourself about the first time going down to the gym, because I bet there's a lot of people who would like to go down, but they're worried about looking silly or being embarrassed, especially with men. Like, you know, the ego comes into it. We're a little bit worried about looking like an idiot. Yeah. What's your advice to those guys?
Yeah, I get asked a lot, like by young guys, sort of where to train, or like, is it okay to come down? Like, yeah, just come train. You know, there's no ego. I mean, there are some people that have an ego, but very rare in MMA gyms, because I think everyone gets humbled at some point, and where there's so many disciplines, you can't be the best at all of them. You know, if you're focusing on your striking, your grappling's going to be a little bit poorer, and vice versa. So. You get a really good striker who comes to spar, he might smash everyone. The next day he comes to roll and everyone taps him out. So there's always a good balance with it, so yeah.
Do you remember the first time you kind of thought to yourself, I love this, this is for me?
Yeah, it just kind of always, I even enjoyed like the learning, even when I was sort of getting submitted 5 times, 6 times a day or session or whatever, I kind of enjoyed like the learning of it, because I noticed like quickly that it was getting less and less and less. I was like, the guys that were sort of smashing me and I was sort of nowhere near ever tapping them out or taking them down or whatever, I was getting closer and closer. So I was like, yeah, like there is progress. Like noticing that progress, even if it was like a tiny bit, was sort of enough to like keep me happy, sort of thing.
So the pain, does, you know, going through the rounds, does that eventually start to seep back in?
Like I said, I don't feel anything in there. You literally don't. You won't believe it, obviously, but it's after the fight you feel it. My elbow. I've had one fight before. I had an elbow war, so I woke up the next morning. I couldn't even straighten my arms. Like my arms were just locked because of swelling. Feet. It's just brutal.
Okay, so what's the journey from, let's say, the morning UK to one championship? Like, what's that path? How do you do it? What was your journey as well?
So becoming UK #1, sort of I hit it off from there, and I think it's basically just like scouting, you know, talk of the town. Who's the talk of the town in the UK? And at that time, it was me and Liam Harrison. He's signed to one championship. I got signed like 3 years ago to one championship, and I had my debut. And as I had my debut, the knockout that I had on there, it just went through the roof. Like, social media went crazy. I think the video went viral, the elbow, and after that they gave me the title shot.
So, young guy, obsessed with the sport, looking forward at One Championship? What's that moment like when you get the call?
It was, I thought my trainer was lying to me, because I remember before I messaged One Championship like a few years ago saying great show. I've still got the DM on my phone. Great show, I would love to be a part of it one day. Didn't get back to me, unfortunately. But then they realised, and then, so when I won the world title now, I went back onto our chat on One Championship, and I looked at that message saying I'd love to be a part of it. And that's when it comes surreal, like, I knew what I wanted and I achieved it.
We talk about manifestation, you know, like believing you're gonna have something, and then when you arrive there, there's like, it almost feels like it's just supposed to happen. This is the way it's supposed to be. So when they call your name and you get that belt, like what was that moment like? So
when they said, and the new, so throughout training camp, that was the saying, like my trainer would egg me on, and the new world champion. And it just stuck in my head and I thought, I got this. I probably had about 5% chance winning that fight. And like I said, nobody believed I was gonna win that fight. But I studied him for a long, long time. Growing up, I watched this guy, Sam A. Big respect to him, he's the legend. And I was very confident. I shouldn't have been confident because I had 15 fights. I should have been cacking my pants really, but I was so confident. And yeah, took it with both hands.
You know, what was that like when you raised it in the air?
Unreal. I had my family there, my granddad, my friends. I came out to Singapore. For my granddad to be there, he's my #1 fan, my granddad. And to win in front of him, to win in front of everyone really. The best thing was the gold confetti at the end when it just came down. I just thought, I had a broken nose as well. Broke my nose in the second round, I couldn't breathe. And my trainer was laughing at me in the corner, my dad was laughing at me in the corner, get on with it. I'm like, I can't breathe out my nose. So I just thought, I gotta get on with it now. And the best night of my life.
And I gotta make something of myself. I just decided that I wanna fight. I don't know why, probably based on the fact that I didn't believe that at the time I was smart enough to go uni and had the time to go uni and earn money and look after my kids. I didn't believe in that journey. What I did believe is that I could go down the route of boxing and then getting paid to fight and then being able to have a work to look after my children. I did believe that. So because I did believe that, I began this journey of what do fighters do? They go running. Okay, I gotta go running. What else? They go to the gym. I gotta go to the gym. I gotta train hard. I gotta watch film clips of them. I gotta immerse myself into becoming this person. And then the discipline of it started, you know, coming into play. Like, wow, what level of this? Because it's not like I knew everything before I made the decision. I didn't. I just said I'm gonna do it. Obviously you got an idea of what it takes to be a boxer, but you really have no idea until you begin. Yeah, I think that your want and need and desire to achieve your goal has to be stronger than everything else that comes against you. So what was happening, whatever was going on with me that was horrible, that made me uncomfortable, that I didn't like, and what you hear people say, oh, that's too hard. Everything that made me feel like that, I would envision my end goal. And I would realize that, are you gonna allow this to get in the way of the pleasure of reaching this goal? And every time I had that thought, I would keep going. Every time when I was running and I felt like everything just said, you need to stop now. And I'd say, yeah, but I set that target down there. I knew that if I reached that target, the feeling I was gonna get to reach the goal that I'd set was gonna develop me and build me up. So I just kept going, and I knew that I was building something in me that was becoming strong and mighty. And even though I didn't know how good, I just knew there was something in me that said, this is better than what you've currently got. And to get what you want, you're gonna have to go through this pain, these feelings of disgust and giving up, because your body feels like it actually physically can't do anything else. It can't do no more. It's telling you stop. I don't want to take another step. I can't breathe. I feel sick. And you just keep going, because the worst thing you're gonna happen is you're gonna vomit and keep going. The worst thing happens, you're gonna seize up, get cramp. But it doesn't say you can't keep going. Nothing says that. And then you can find out what you're made of.
Do you remember your first experience stepping into the ring for your first pro fight and like having people watch it? Like, what was that whole ordeal like?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that obviously I'm coming from being the strongest woman in the world, pound for pound. And I have this like false sense of confidence and ability just because I have this strength. So it's like if in the opposite end of the ring, there's this girl that I know lifts not even half of what I lift. So I always kind of stepped into the ring feeling invincible, which is cool. It's unrealistic because obviously, I mean, I'm very far behind in terms of just ring IQ and obviously skill and so many other things. But I've always felt like I have had this like supreme confidence entering the ring. So the first opponent that I had, the first time I stepped into the ring for an actual fight, I wasn't scared at all. She was like this short, little chubby girl, super sweet. So it wasn't intimidating at all. The second fight that I had was against this girl that had 10 years of Muay Thai experience. She was undefeated in boxing. I was fighting in the Thor versus Eddie Hall card that got switched for Thor versus Dev Larat. But still, like, there was a lot of pressure. I definitely felt it there. And I think it was after the second round after the first round, none of the strategy or the plan that I came in with worked. Like what I had in mind that I was gonna do wasn't whatsoever. Like I was getting hit a lot. She was super fast, super powerful. I broke my nose. It didn't stop bleeding. I was out of breath. It was literally changed the way that I saw this girl. She was maybe a couple inches taller than me, but thinking back at that, she looked like a giant. Like it was so overwhelming and such a massive challenge that she looked massive. And I remember sitting down after the second round, going into the third one, and thinking to myself, what the f am I doing? Like, this is insane. Why am I doing this? Like, I want to quit right now. I don't want to be here. My nose hurts, my face hurts, my face is super sore, my fucking hand is sore. This sucks. I don't want to do this. Came into the third round, did what I could, came back. They almost stopped the fight because of how much my nose was bleeding, it was sore. Anyway, the fight was a draw. Finished the fight, and I remember coming out of the ring thinking that was the last time that I'll ever step in. Like, nah, this is crazy. I don't need to be doing this. You know, I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for fame. Like, I'm just doing this and I just got beat the fuck up. Nah, I'm not doing this again. Legit. Almost threw my gloves in the trash. And that was the exact reason why I kept doing it. Because I was so uncomfortable and it was such a horrible experience. I'm not gonna quit because of that. You know, I never have. I've never stopped doing something because it's uncomfortable. The opposite, right? I always lean into situations that are uncomfortable.
Third fight?
And the third fight was a better matchup. Was a girl that was more, you know, on my level in terms of skill. She had like close to 30 fights though, so she had a ton of experience, but she wasn't as fast or as powerful, and I felt very in control of the fight. And I think also I was able to enjoy the fight a lot more because I wasn't as nervous. I already knew what to expect, and I had already been in a place that's really uncomfortable. So I felt more comfortable knowing that if I'm in that situation again, I'll know how to react better. You know, I know how to take myself out of that negative mindset of, I want to quit, this hurts. You know, I had already been there, so I wasn't afraid of being there anymore. So I could just be in more of a flow state, automatic, and just enjoy the fight much more. And now I'm super excited for the next one. I can't wait.
So when you did come back, was there was there a point where you decided to put that behind you and move on to the fight game, or was there a period in between, or?
No, I was always a product of two worlds. Like externally looking in, you see a special forces guy that is going to war, and then you see this MMA fighter, and like these are two very different things. To me, it's the same thing. You know, I was like a warrior society, a warrior culture. I was just doing two different forms of combat, and I would have done both of them concurrently. The military had a hard time with allowing me to fight while I was on active duty. So if I had my cake and I could eat it too, I would have stayed in special forces. I would have stayed in that special missions unit, and I would have continued to fight. You know, I did it for a few years, and they didn't know about it until finally they're sitting there, they look up at the TV, and they're like, "That's one of our guys. Why is that guy on television?" You know, and I got in trouble.
So you haven't really put it behind you then, in the sense that the private company you've now set up, and like you say, you got to do various different work in war zones now, just on a private basis, right?
Dude, I'm gonna do this till the day I die. I'm gonna be super clear. Like when I'm finally dead, and at whatever point that is, where I get blown up in combat, or like just of old age, and the wheels fall off, and the windows are smashed, and the door is just totally broken, the engine's on fire, the transmission's grinding. I pull up to the pearly gates, and they look at me, and they're like, "Bro, I can't let this car in here." And I was like, "Well, this is how I ran it. So I ran hard in the paint. You either let me in or you don't. But this hunk of junk is going to sit here until you make a decision. Like, I'm going to do this forever. I'm never going to set the sword down." I have been so blessed to know why I'm here. You know, like, I am so fortunate to understand my purpose, and it would be a wasted life if I did not stay on course forever.
Well, there was times I didn't want to go. My mum forced me in as well, and I think maybe she thought that she realised that it was giving me the confidence that I had. Maybe she realised that I was decent at it as well, and potential career option, I don't know. But there was times where, because at times when you're very young, it seemed almost military to me, the boxing club. Like it's changed now, and how they train kids is completely different. But it was hard, and it was 3 rounds of a warm-up, 3 rounds of skipping, 3 rounds of bags, 3 rounds of pads, 3 rounds of abs and crunches at the end. That was it. Same old routine every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So at times I didn't want to go down, and I'd rather be playing out in the street with my mates, playing football, or playing, I was going to say PlayStation, I think I had a PlayStation, Sega Mega Drive or whatever it was then. And I was kind of pushed out the door almost at times by my mum. I resented it a wee bit at times, didn't want to go all the time, but I always made sure I did. Absolutely, there was a period in my career when I was about 16 to 18 where I wasn't having the most success. I was doing things that 16 to 18-year-olds do, and starting to get a taste for a drink at the weekend up the park with my mates and stuff, and chasing girls and everything else that boys at that age do. And I suffered a few defeats and didn't go off the rails, but I wasn't putting in the effort. There was a real turning point in my career when I was maybe about 21. I was still an amateur at the time, but I'd lost to a guy called Kevin Fennessy in the Irish Championships. And to be honest, Kevin was not a bad fighter, but what I wanted to do, at that stage I knew it was going to be my career, and I wanted to be a professional boxer. And I shouldn't have been losing to people like Kevin Fennessy. Anyway, he beat me fair and square. I went home, I was with, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, but now my wife, Christine. And I just had a talk to her, and I said, "Look, I'm going to pack it in. What's the point of doing this if I can't beat guys like him?" She kind of had a word with me and said, "Look, stick it out." She understood that I wasn't training how I should have been, and I was maybe putting 2 weeks of hard training in before a fight, which isn't enough. And I stuck it out, drew Kevin Fennessy the next year in the quarterfinals of the Irish Championships, training properly as an amateur but like a professional, and I stopped him, his corner through the talon, and that was a real turning point for me. I knew, like, if I put the effort in, I can do this, and I can go very far. So that was like a people talk about light bulb moments. That was certainly one for me.
Thank you so much to all of those people. It's such a huge list of names, but we have British champions, we have world champions, we have Muay Thai, MMA, UFC, Jiu-Jitsu, all these different disciplines, boxing, did I say boxing? All these different disciplines. Some of the best fighters in the world, giving you their story, their knowledge, their inspiration. So thank you so much to all of them. Their stuff is all linked down below. Today's video was brought to you by MulliganBrothers.com, where you can now buy the Rise and Grind t-shirts. This is my favorite one so far. I'm so happy with how these designs came out and the whole clothing brand itself. Like having a motivational clothing brand, to do it in a tasteful way was our goal, and I'm so happy with how they came out. These are the new gym series, so they do fit a little bit more snug on the biceps, across the chest. They make you look a little bit more swole, which I am all for. And yeah, so thank you to the support. You make these possible, these videos possible, this whole company possible. MulliganBrothers.com, and the support we have there is what makes this possible, so thank you. If you want to see how I rise and grind, my gym training, what I get up to, head over to Instagram, @JordanMulliganBrother. Come say hello, see what I'm working out on, see some of my grueling workouts and what I get up to. Guys, the Inspire Change movement is made possible by you guys and your actions of inspiring change. That, at the essence, is what the Inspire Change movement is. So go do that. Go inspire some change with your actions and through your actions. Have a blessed and productive day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.